Hello, KCW children. This is Pastor Joe.
And I'm Kawan.
Welcome to Catechism for Our Kids, question number 13. So today's question is, it's a serious one. Can anyone keep the law of God perfectly?
No.
So what's the answer?
Since the fall, no human has been able to keep the law of God perfectly.
So no one is perfect.
Yeah. No one. Absolutely no one.
So we cannot keep the law of God perfectly ever.
Mm-hmm.
Is it good?
Is it good that we're not perfect?
Yeah.
No.
No.
I mean, perfect is good.
That's right. But we can't be perfect. And the teaching here is we're not. We're not perfect. So this teaching, this lesson really teaches us to be humble. Because we are not perfect, we cannot say, I am perfect in obedience. I am all good about law keeping. No. We are not perfect, and it makes us humble before God.
And the law of God is not like the American law or the British law or the law of Kenya or the law of China, right? The law of God is God-given law, and it is our what we stand by and what we think is right and wrong, even outside of like just obeying the country's laws.
Very good. So the Apostle Paul said this. Would you read this passage?
None are righteous, no, not one. No one understands, no one seeks for God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one.
It's not exaggeration. From the biblical perspective of view, according to the Bible, none of us among us is righteous. None of us is actually holy and good. And it really humbles us down. I mean, whatever good we are doing or we have been doing, we are not good enough for God. And that is a teaching of this passage.
You can't become a good Christian just by doing good things.
True. Yeah. So, you may raise this question. Very interesting one. What about babies? Babies are innocent. Babies are beautiful. Babies.
They haven't done anything.
That's
They
right.
were just born.
But what I'm saying is this: being cute doesn't mean faithful to the law of God or perfect in obedience. Of course, we all love babies. They are adorable. They are beautiful. They are cute. But don't be confused. Being cute doesn't mean faithful to the law of God. They are very, very young and innocent, and they are not intentional in their obedience yet.
Obedience requires action. It's an active thing. You think about it and you do it, and it's something that you make a choice or somewhat of a choice to do.
Yes, and it's a commitment. You commit yourself to the Lord. Babies don't do that.
Babies don't know enough to do that.
That's right. Knowledge and learning is a very important part in obedience. So, what about babies? Being cute doesn't mean faithful to the law of God.
Oh, and when Appa says knowledge, he doesn't just mean like being smart. He doesn't mean you need to like make all A's on your test. He means you need to try to know God better.
Yes, so knowledge of God and your personal relationship with God. So, God gave us His law in order to make us full of love like Him. Without love, no one can keep the law perfectly.
Yep.
The whole point of giving the law of God to us is not just, hey, you do this and you don't do this, but children, I like to have you like Christ. I like to imitate me as a father. So that's the whole point of the law of God. It's not just regulation about what is permitted, what is not, but it's a guidance to be like God, or to be like really God's children.
You've learned this already through all of the Ten Commandment spiel, like in the previous catechisms. The one thing that's been constant is that there's a reason behind the law. It's not the law is everything. It's the law was created for us because of God's love and because He wants us to get closer to Him.
That's right. So the more we are getting into love, the more faithful we can keep the law of God, not the other way around. So, children, I want you to understand this. Without loving God, without loving your neighbor and friends, there's no way to keep the law perfectly. But we need to, at this moment, we need to understand, oh my goodness, we don't have enough love to keep the law perfectly. We can't keep the law perfectly because we don't have enough love. So when we look at ourselves, when we look at our heart, we pray to God, Father, we don't have love to keep the law perfectly. And that's why no one is perfect. Everybody is broken in some way or another.
Oh, think of it like this. Like, you have parents, right? And you love them, right? But sometimes you do things that hurt them and that don't reflect or don't show your love for them. And that's what we mean by no one can keep the law perfectly, because we love God. But even if we love God, sometimes we hurt God, and that's bad.
That's right. So the question here is, if we don't have enough love to be perfect, then we need help. So where is help from? That's the question. And the answer is...
Da, 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 da. Christ alone perfectly obeys God. Christ keeps the law with His perfect love.
So we have model here. Christ is the perfect model for the perfect obedience. But He's not just a model. He's a builder. He builds you up to be perfect. He embraces you in His heart, that He could nourish you in every good way.
I mean, Jesus was a carpenter, so like...
Yes. So He will mold you, He will form you, and He will build you up to be perfect in Him, not by yourself. And that's why we need Christ. Every time we do something to glorify God, we rely on the wisdom and strength of Christ. We really need to pray to Christ, Lord, would you lead me to do this well for your name? Would you give me strength and wisdom to love more my friend, my neighbor, my family. And that's how we glorify God when we do things in the name of Christ.
Mm.
So the memory verse today is very important and very precious.
Although Hebrews 5:8-9, although he was a son, he learned obedience through what he suffered, and being made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation to all who obey him.
So he refers to Christ. So although Christ was a son of God, he learned obedience through what he suffered.
And he was made perfect. And so we can learn from this that perfection is not a one-time deal. Perfection is something that is constantly built up. And obedience is constantly built up.
Even Jesus Christ, Son of God, he learned obedience through suffering and difficult situations and times. So we have the same challenge. We do suffer a lot during, especially COVID-19, and this situation is very depressing for all of us. But when we go through this very difficult and hard times, we learn obedience to God. And that's how God teaches us about perfect obedience. And think about the second half of this verse, being made perfect. He became the source of eternal salvation to all who obey him. Like we taught you just a minute ago, we really need to rely on Christ when we do things because he is the source of salvation. He is the source of power and wisdom what we are doing for the glory of God. So in everything you do, whether it is study or play or serving your parents or other people, you rely on the source of salvation, Jesus Christ. So back to the question, can anyone keep the law of God perfectly?
Since the fall, no human has been able to keep the law of God perfectly.
This teaching doesn't depress you or put you down.
It's not supposed to.
This teaching leads you to Christ, the source of our salvation. So next time we will learn about why do we need Christ and how do we get the salvation from Christ. Okay, so until next time, see you and
Bye.
take care. Bye.